A sudden car accident sent me into another world, and I found myself reincarnated into a cheesy romance novel as the ex-boyfriend of the powerful, influential rival. As luck would have it, my character was being cornered by the female lead, Ella, so I had no choice but to grab the breakup agreement, hand it to her, and sign my name with a stony expression. Seeing this, Ella's eyes were rimmed with red, and her face was pale. Her tear-filled gaze looked like it could melt anyone's heart. "Oscar, do you really not love me anymore?" Her voice trembled slightly, as if she couldn't believe what was happening right in front of her. I felt absolutely nothing, and even wanted to laugh a little. This was the classic, angsty romance trope from a novel. As long as I rejected her harshly, she would take the money, nurse her wounds, and run right into the arms of the male lead. And I, Oscar Hayes, as the main villain, would be systematically destroyed by the hero until my family was ruined and I met a tragic end. This scene was practically tailor-made for disaster. After a moment of mental adjustment, I quickly slipped into my new role. After all, before this, I was Oscar, just an ordinary college student. Now, I'd been dropped into a ridiculously melodramatic romance novel, transformed into the fabulously wealthy heir of a powerful dynasty. According to the plot, my ex-girlfriend, Ella, and I were supposed to be a perfect match, both moving in the same elite social circles in Los Angeles. Our conflict began with a misunderstanding at our UCLA graduation ceremony, which led me to misjudge Ella and begin a relentless, obsessive pursuit of her. She was the undisputed campus queen, born into wealth and a life of ease, but a sudden family crisis left her shouldering an immense financial burden. It turned out her mother had been diagnosed with kidney failure. To cover the astronomical medical bills, she had no choice but to sign an agreement with me, becoming my arm candy for social events. At the same time, I had transformed from an anonymous corporate newbie into the heir apparent, wielding the full power of the Hayes family. Yet, our relationship was like two parallel lines, drifting further and further apart without ever truly connecting. We were bound together by circumstance until that inevitable day when my first love, the story's true heroine, gracefully re-entered my life. At that moment, our conflict reached its breaking point. I tore up the agreement myself and declared our arrangement terminated. The novel's ending, it seemed, was a punishment for my character's past actions. So, driven by the plot, I didn't hesitate to tear up that so-called breakup agreement, the symbol of our transaction, and then coolly signed a check as my final compensation to her. "Oscar, are you absolutely sure about this?" But right then, the plot veered off course again. She didn't take the check and leave heartbroken as I'd expected. In this story, I was merely an observer, unable to predict what would happen next. I was just a pawn pushed by fate, a soul desperate to break free. So right now, my focus wasn't on the breakup agreement itself, but on making her see how different we were. Our worldviews were incompatible, our values completely misaligned. Amazing. I actually had access to such a massive fortune. Although the Hayes family rules stated that I couldn't inherit the business due to my lazy and unscholarly nature, I still received an inexhaustible monthly allowance. After learning this part of the plot, I started studying business diligently, hoping to build a successful career. Once I was successful enough, I wouldn't need Ella anymore, making this whole breakup drama feel rather pointless. Thinking this, I looked into her eyes, which were as calm as still water, and thought to myself that this was probably for the best. I suppressed the flicker of pity and forced down the stirring in my heart. I gave her an emotionless nod in agreement. After all, I couldn't let my compassion drag this damn plot back onto its intended course. So, with a resolve I'd never felt before, I said, "Ella, I accept your terms." Her response, while a little surprising, still made sense. After all, the Ella in the novel was proud to her core and refused to bow to anyone. According to the original plot, she was supposed to refuse loudly, then sign the breakup agreement with a mix of resentment and finality. After she signed, I noticed Ella's brow furrowed slightly, as if she were deep in thought or perhaps suppressing some emotion. I deliberately turned my head, feigning indifference. "Since we've settled things, Ella, let's just part ways amicably," I said coolly, then turned to make a clean exit. I fully expected her to leave without a second thought, to go find her first love, the story's actual hero. However, when I glanced back while quietly gathering the remaining documents on the table, I saw she was still standing there, motionless, just staring at the signed agreement. I couldn't help but feel a flicker of confusion. We're done here, so why are you still hanging around? My tone was tinged with impatience. Her behavior was clearly outside the bounds of what I understood. Don't tell me you think the settlement isn't enough? Are you still not satisfied? The moment the words left my mouth, Ella's face went white. A flash of hurt crossed her eyes, but she quickly regained her composure, a self-mocking smile playing on her lips. You're right. Who am I to complain about too much money? On second thought, the agreement was signed and the money was paid. My part was done. I had no desire to get tangled up with her again, especially since the story's hero was waiting in the wings. The money I gave her was more than enough for her mother's medical bills. The rest was none of my concern. Our time at UCLA was the beginning of her story as the hero's first love, and it was also the source of all the conflict between us. My feelings for her were nothing like the novel script. I saw her merely as a business partner, but she, on the other hand, had grown dependent on me. We were like two intersecting lines that briefly crossed paths by a twist of fate. But ultimately, we both knew we were from different worlds, destined to go our separate ways with no future connection. Without my character's interference, they would have gotten together and lived happily ever after. My appearance just added an unnecessary, painful detour to their story. The original Oscar Hayes in the novel was intensely jealous, his possessiveness over Ella bordering on madness, and a misunderstanding between them was never resolved. I knew that in the novel, my character's presence kept the perfect couple in a constant state of breaking up and making up. My only choice was to seize this opportunity, use the Hayes family fortune, and build my own success quickly. As I turned to make my grand exit, the corner of my eye caught a flash of disappointment in hers. My heart skipped a beat. Could she have actually developed real feelings for me? Then again, this was just part of the novel's melodramatic plot. I couldn't take it seriously. A cold smirk touched my lips, and I walked away without a backward glance. I had just settled into my car, and I was about to start the engine when my phone buzzed. An iMessage popped up on the screen. The sender was Caleb Knight, my character's frenemy and the actual hero of this novel. In the message, he pointedly asked if I'd been giving Ella a hard time again. He added that he had already booked a restaurant to take her out to dinner and told me to stop bothering them. Watching Ella's obsessive behavior and her entanglement with Caleb, I just felt their relationship was far too theatrical. My presence was often misinterpreted by them, turning me into a catalyst for Caleb and Ella's relationship. With a sarcastic smile, I texted back, "Great, I won't disturb you then. Have a nice dinner." That message clearly infuriated Caleb. He quickly shot back a reply, "You just wait." Right now, all I could think about was the Hayes family fortune. I had no time to meddle in their affairs. I had barely stepped out of the coffee shop when my assistant called to tell me there was a problem at the office. I smiled faintly, hung up, and sent a photo of the signed agreement to my lawyer with a simple instruction, "Handle this according to the contract. I hope she'll be able to live a little better." Caleb's reply was a bit unexpected. "Don't worry, I'll be taking care of her from now on." Although he didn't yell, I could feel his hostility. He seemed to relish the idea of competing with me for Ella. Too bad for him, I thought with a small sigh. He'd picked the wrong rival. I had absolutely no interest in that game. "Did you give her a hard time again?" I asked, feigning surprise. After a moment of silence on the other end, Caleb's laughter came through, full of smug satisfaction. "Why would I need to? I'll tell you straight up, we're done. Stop bothering me." A week later, dressed in casual clothes, I showed up at a high-end nursing home in downtown Beverly Hills. Caleb was standing at the entrance, arms crossed, a mocking look on his face. "Well, if it isn't the great Oscar Hayes. What, here to visit a patient? How does a busy man like you find the time to meddle in other people's business?" A flicker of annoyance crossed Caleb's eyes. He turned away from me, his attention shifting to Ella, who was slowly approaching from a distance. Her gaze rested on me for a moment before turning cold and indifferent. "You're here," I said, walking up to her with a small smile. I then calmly extended my hand to her. "Come on, let's go inside." Seeing this, Caleb scoffed and sneered. "Oscar, don't push it. Don't think for a second. I don't know what you're up to." I just smiled and shook my head, handing my car keys to the assistant behind me. "Go bring my car around to the front," I instructed. Then, ignoring Caleb completely, I took Ella's arm and led her straight into the nursing home. "Come on, let's go." Caleb was momentarily stunned, then a grin spread across his face. "All right," he said, "I'd love to see what kind of game you're playing." I simply offered him a faint smile and said softly, "Caleb, deep down, you're kind of a scoundrel." He had his pride, and I had my principles. We were like two parallel lines, never destined to intersect. I knew he'd always seen me as his rival, someone to compete with. It was a shame he'd picked the wrong person. I had zero interest in him. I just wanted to live out my life in peace. The romantic drama between him and Ella had nothing to do with me. I didn't say another word. I just turned and walked away. But I soon discovered things weren't as simple as I'd thought, because it wasn't long before I got a call from my assistant. Just as I was about to end the call, Ella's phone rang. She took out her phone and glanced at the caller ID. It was Caleb. Her first instinct was to decline the call, but after a moment's thought, she answered. "Hello, what's up?" Her voice was flat, completely devoid of emotion. I knew she had never had any romantic feelings for me. Her heart had always belonged to someone else, and that someone was Caleb Knight. I was just an insignificant passerby who had helped her out when she was in a tough spot. That was all. My assistant, sensing my thoughts, suggested, "Sir, perhaps we should head back now." I shook my head. I didn't want my presence to cause any more drama between them. "That won't be necessary," I said, looking at her directly. "Tell him to stop bothering me." "Okay." I knew Ella was conflicted. Her feelings for my predecessor were complicated, a mix of dependence and resentment. Her persistence pained me. She clearly had better options. She could have been out there finding her own happiness instead of wasting her time on me. Her reliance on me was only because I had helped her once when she was at her lowest point. She was clearly taken aback by my bluntness. Her face paled as she hung up the phone and looked up at me, hesitating. "I just wanted to see my mom. I'll leave soon." I ended the call and quickly left the nursing home. 10 minutes later, at the entrance of a nursing home, I got a call from my assistant. He informed me that everything was settled. The money had been transferred to Ella's account. From this point forward, we had absolutely no connection to each other. I turned to my assistant and said, "Tell Ella thank you and goodbye." What I really wanted to say was, "Thank you for setting me free. Now I can finally relax." I got in the car, slammed on the accelerator, and sped away. As I turned the corner, I didn't look back to see Caleb's expression. It must have been furious. After all, the woman he'd been chasing was now officially my ex. Are all rich people this impulsive? I pulled over to the side of the road and called my assistant. Find out where Caleb Knight's car went. He's probably on his way to find Ella right now. I stopped and turned back to face him, a faint smile playing on my lips. "What? You still want to have another go at it with me?" I had no more interest in playing these boring emotional games with him. After all, I was now a wealthy, single bachelor, which was far more interesting than being some lovesick puppy chasing after the story's heroine. "Are you scared?" I picked up my pace. I wanted nothing more to do with him. Then, in the reflection of a car window, I saw a familiar figure. It was Ella, standing on a sidewalk. A crowd bustled around her, but she seemed completely disconnected from it all. Her face was blank, her eyes vacant, like a puppet with its strings cut. "No way," Caleb said suddenly, his eyes glinting with amusement. "You haven't actually fallen for her, have you? Let me give you some advice. Give up on that idea right now." I just stared. Caleb looked at me smugly and shook his head. "Kid, you're still too naive to compete with me. I've seen plenty of women like her. Believe me, in less than 3 days, she'll come crawling back." His words disgusted me. But more than that, they filled me with a profound sense of sadness. So this is how people like him saw the world. In the eyes of the rich, even emotions could be measured in dollars and cents. I sneered and tossed my car keys to him. "Since you're so confident, let's just wait and see who gets the last laugh." With that, I turned and walked away. I didn't want to waste another breath on him. I was afraid I might not be able to stop myself from punching him in the face. It didn't take long for Caleb's expression to shift from smug provocation to utter disbelief. He stared at me, his eyes wide. "You actually hit me? Do you have any idea who I am?" I laughed and tore the check in my hands to shreds. "I don't care who you are, Caleb. All I know is that you've crossed me." A flicker of panic crossed Caleb's face. He didn't dare challenge me again. I pointed behind him and said flatly, "Get lost, and don't let me see you again." He scurried away, but not before shooting me one last hateful glare. I paid him no mind and walked over to Ella. "Are you okay?" I asked softly. "The debt is paid. From now on, we don't owe each other anything." With that, I turned to leave, calling over my shoulder, "Caleb, I hope we never meet again." Just then, a waiter approached with a freshly made cocktail and respectfully poured it for me. "Sir, your drink." I reached for the glass, but Caleb snatched it away, ready to down it in one go. I put out a hand to stop him, a playful smile on my face. "You can't buy this drink, even with all your money." The waiter I dismissed earlier returned, his face pale, and he quickly bowed his head in apology. I'm sorry, sir, I didn't know. He was clearly intimidated by me, so I waved a hand magnanimously. It's fine, you can go. Then I turned to Caleb with a perfectly calibrated, polite smile. This drink isn't mine either. I was just passing by and happened to pick it up. Take this tip as my treat. After all, who wouldn't like a rich, generous guy like you? My words left Caleb speechless for a moment. Then his face flushed with anger. Who the hell do you think you are? Are you messing with me? Messing with you? I don't have the time, I said with an innocent expression. I'm just stating a fact. Why are you getting so worked up? I watched Caleb's face shift between shades of green and white, feeling an indescribable sense of satisfaction. Do you know why? He stared at me, confused. What do you mean? I leaned in close to his ear and whispered, so only he could hear, because I never want to see you again. The original story mentioned that his relationship with his family was strained. His mother was obsessed with his older brother and showed him clear favoritism, which is why he never wanted to go home. Despite his family, he lived on his own and refused to return. It was only when his mother cut him off financially that he was forced to go back, but the experience changed him. He was no longer that same ambitious, driven young man. In short, they were both golden boys, and neither was willing to yield to the other. On second thought, I felt a sense of relief. Who cared about him? Our paths would never cross again. All I had to do was live my own life, and that was enough. I don't like having my future predicted for me. I swore I never wanted to see Ella again. The woman was nothing but trouble. Sure, she was beautiful, but she was just a prop in the story to highlight my character's incompetence. I'd rather stay late at the office than go back to my apartment nearby. I went there once and never wanted to return. The decor was just too gaudy. I sighed. Let's just say I inherited the majority of the Hayes family assets, but because I lacked the skills, I could only be a figurehead. My character's older brother, David, was the real business prodigy. Our relationship was delicate. I kept a respectful distance from him, and he was constantly disappointed by my lack of ambition. Fortunately, my character had no interest in business. He just wanted to be a playboy, so David and I mostly stayed out of each other's way. I opened my phone and glanced at the calendar. I realized tomorrow was Ella's birthday. I thought about it for a moment, then decided to send her a happy birthday message. After all, we had parted on relatively good terms. I just didn't expect her to actually call me back. Her voice sounded a little weary. Thank you, Oscar. I was taken aback for a second before I recovered. You're welcome. We exchanged a few more pleasantries before hanging up. I stared at the call log on my screen, a mix of emotions swirling inside me. Suddenly, a bold idea popped into my head. I picked up my phone and called my assistant. Find out where Ella is right now. My assistant was efficient. He called back quickly. Sir, Ms. Vance is currently at a bar downtown called Nightscape. I hung up and immediately drove to the bar. The bar was packed when I arrived, but I spotted her right away, sitting alone in a corner, nursing a drink. A few sleazy-looking guys were hovering around her. I frowned and made my way over. Well, if it isn't the beautiful Ella. What's a girl like you doing drinking all alone? I ignored them, walked straight up to Ella, and said softly, I'll take you home. She looked up, a flicker of surprise in her eyes, which she quickly masked. No, thank you. I didn't say another word, just took her by the arm and started leading her out. The guys started to move to block me, but one cold glare from me was enough to make them back off. I helped her into my car, started the engine, and drove off. The car was silent. Neither of us said a word. I drove her to her apartment building. Before she got out, she suddenly turned to me. Thank you, Oscar. I looked at her, wanting to say something, but in the end, I just kept quiet. After she got out, I drove away. I didn't know why I did it. I just knew I didn't want to see her get hurt. Maybe it was because of the unique relationship we once had. I went home, took a shower, and lay in bed, tossing and turning, unable to fall asleep. I picked up my phone, thinking about texting Ella to see if she got home okay, but then I decided against it. We were over. I didn't want to get tangled up with her again. I tossed my phone aside, closed my eyes, and forced myself to sleep. The next day, as soon as I got to the office, my assistant called. Sir, Ms. Vance is here to see you. I frowned. Send her up. A few moments later, Ella appeared in my office. She was wearing a white dress today and looked stunning. You wanted to see me? I asked, my tone neutral. She looked at me, a complex emotion flickering in her eyes. I came to thank you. Don't mention it, I said. It was nothing. We lapsed into silence again. Finally, she was the one to break the silence. Oscar, can we still be friends? I looked at her and didn't answer. When I didn't respond, she gave a self-deprecating laugh. I get it. I'll go now. With that, she turned to leave. Wait, I called out suddenly. She stopped and looked back at me, a flicker of hope in her eyes. I looked at her and said, "Don't go to bars alone anymore. It's dangerous." She was taken aback for a moment, then nodded. "I know." Then she turned and left. I watched her leave, a storm of emotions churning inside me. I didn't know what the future held for us. I only knew that I didn't want to get any more involved with her. I'm a selfish person. I just want to live my own life. The drama between her and Caleb had nothing to do with me. I just hoped she would find her own happiness, and soon.